Guys, what is going on? It is Nate the Game Guy coming back with another video, and today I want to talk to you guys about some of the hardest lessons that I've learned as a game collector. Now, I've been collecting video games for a very long time now. I've got 3 complete sets right here in the game room. I am close to about 4,000 games. Don't know if I have a little under or over. I haven't really been keeping track at this point. But it doesn't really matter because right here, I'm going to be talking to you guys about what exactly I've learned as a game collector after all this time right here and share you guys some of this information. So without further ado, let's dive right into this video subject and take a look at some of these lessons that I've learned over the years as being a game collector for a very long time now, right after the intro. So I think I'm going to kick things off right here by talking about this lesson that I certainly learned as the years have gone by, and that's essentially that everybody's opportunity is going to be different. So what do I mean by this? Well, I'm going to give some context first. So when I first started out game collecting, when I really wanted to be going all into getting this massive game collection, right? I saw a bunch of my favorite collectors here on YouTube where they would be finding games like Mario Party for like only $2 at their local yard sale, right? And there's just so many variables that come into play where, if, you are watching a bunch of your favorite collectors and you're like, all right, I want to go all in on garage sailing, thrift shopping, all that. And you're going to be expecting to get the same type of results after not a short period of time, but over a really good period of time where you're actually giving that a fair chance. You may want to be prepared to be disappointed. And essentially, if you live somewhere where it's really rural, right, and your neighbor is 5 miles away from you, the chances of you finding a decent score, all that, pretty slim to none. I would recommend that you stay home at that point. Not saying that to be mean, but if you live in some really big metropolitan area, right? Obviously, wherever more yard sales are, the higher the chances are of you finding a deal. And also too, yard sales have been really all over the place within several years too. A lot of people, sometimes they're like, oh yeah, I know what my stuff is worth, when they're charging an Xbox 360 for $200. Meanwhile, you can buy a used one for $80 with shipping on eBay. And it's just kind of one of those things where it's yeah, you may see somebody else doing the same thing you want to do, but doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to achieve the same results. And unfortunately, that's just something that I had to learn when it came to collecting and all that too. And also keep in mind too, if you go around trying to hit up a whole bunch of yard sales and all that, and you don't find anything, that's essentially time wasted if you really think about that too. So that's kind of another thing you got to keep in mind too, is just because someone is achieving certain results doing something that you want to do doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the exact same results. Now, this is definitely a big one. It's absolutely worth talking about, and that's essentially nothing lasts forever, right? We're all going to die one day. Essentially, your car that you use to commute to and from work, the engine will just give out one day, transmission will be shot, and just nothing lasts forever. And of course that extends to video games and consoles as a whole. One day some of your favorite consoles will no longer play games, may no longer turn on. The save data and some of those Game Boy carts, Super Nintendo 64 carts, the batteries are going to die out, batteries are going to need to be replaced, discs will begin to rot away, and they'll be permanently damaged, and you can no longer play your games. Essentially, that's just the reality of everything, right? Of course, with a topic such as disc rot, it's definitely not as known as electronics dying out from old age. So I highly recommend that you guys stay educated about that. So I've got another video that you can check out right here if you're really curious about what exactly disc rot is, go into a lot of detail as to what it is, what you can do, all that other stuff, right? But that's definitely a harsh truth that I had to learn and accept, especially with recently. If you're a returning viewer, where essentially you saw that my Super Nintendo is beginning to kick the bucket, I've had a lot of amazing suggestions on what I can do with that situation, and I really want to thank each and every one of you for your amazing suggestions. But when it comes to, preservation and game collecting and all that, I think there's a few truths that that need to be said when it comes to just the whole scenario, right? Is number one, right? Stay educated, right? If you want to keep your stuff as long as you can, have it working, all that, stay educated, right? What are things that need to be replaced over time, right? What are some things you can do to help protect your consoles, protect your games, make sure that they're doing all right, right? Make sure that they're in a climate controlled environment, right? Don't store them in some like backyard shed or whatever where there's no AC or heating and all that, right? Keep it like in a room where there's AC and heating and all that other stuff, right? Also, have some form of acceptance, right? Again, nothing lasts forever, but obviously there are things that you can do to, extend the life of different things, right? Of course, that's just the reality of it is, right? And of course, continue doing what you're doing already, right? We all have short lives. I don't know about you guys, but with the free time I have, I'd rather be doing something that brings me happiness and enjoyment. And if collecting video games and consoles makes me happy, hey, so be it. We all got to do something that makes us happy. But still, at the end of the day, I think we all got to realize that, hey, nothing lasts forever. And of course, that's definitely a hard lesson that I've had to accept over the years as a game collector. Now, here's definitely another hard one that I had to learn and accept, and that is essentially that not necessarily everything I own has to be out on display, right? So I'm a completionist. Essentially, what a completionist is somebody who tries to get as many games as possible. If it's a game that they don't own, they're going to add it right into their collection, right? I try to complete as many sets as possible where I try to say, hey, I've got every single game released for a specific console. I just think it's really cool for me, and it's just something I enjoy doing. Now, obviously, with this advice, it's not really going to apply to somebody who just wants to collect specifically what they want to play, what they're interested in, all that. Not that I'm not interested in, completing sets, but I think you get the idea of what I'm trying to say, right? So with me, I've had to make the decision multiple times of like, hey, there's certain games and certain things I have that I probably should pack away unless I want to make sure that everything is nice, tidy, orderly, organized, all that, right? And, if I want to continue getting games, adding on to the game room, right, I should probably begin to downsize a bit so that way things are, manageable. There's not places where there's no walking room here in the game room and all that. I've definitely had to make some of those decisions. And, I'll admit it's not fun to do, but, it's something that I've got to do. I mean, just like everybody else in the world, my space I have is limited. Some people may have more room than others. Hey, you may have your game collection in a basement or a garage, hopefully with AC and heating. Otherwise, you might run into some problems later down the line. Maybe you live with your parents. Maybe you live in a mobile home. Maybe you've got just a 1-bedroom or a studio apartment or whatever, right? Depending on your situation, the space that you have may be bigger or smaller when compared to some, right? Obviously, with me, I have my game collection just thrown into a spare bedroom that I've got and all that. And, I've definitely had to make some decisions on downsizing. But, since I like to keep everything nice, tidy, organized, it's, something I've had to do. Do I like it? Not really, but, it's definitely something that I've had to learn and accept. And even if I had more space and all that, I guarantee you this would be something that I would have to deal with later down the line. But yeah, easily one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn was essentially that not necessarily everything I have has to be out on display. Because I mean, after all, the games such as Madden NFL 06, when am I going to be playing that anytime soon? Probably never, if we're being honest. So things like that I've had to pack away, but that's okay, because then I've got room to display even more cooler things that I've got. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out my video. Please be sure to check out these videos here, and here. After all, I post a lot of content when it comes to game collecting tips, and other video game related subjects. So be sure to keep an eye out every Monday and Friday where I upload consistently, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.